The sun was slowly sinking behind the horizon, painting the vast plains in brilliant streaks of amber, orange, and blood red. Dust swirled lazily in the heat of the late afternoon, settling on the wooden fence posts, the dry earth, and Mara's worn boots. She wiped her brow with the back of her hand, the sweat mixing with the streaks of dirt from a day spent chasing chores, fetching water, and trying to coax a few vegetables from the stubborn garden that had refused to flourish. Her 2 children ran in circles nearby, their laughter fragile and fleeting, like tiny birds in a storm, carrying a sweetness that Mara feared could not survive the harshness of their reality. Her husband had left months ago, leaving a thin trail of unpaid bills, empty cupboards, and a heartbroken family. Mara had learned to fill the silence with the hum of routine, with whispered reassurances to her children that everything would be all right, even though she had begun to doubt it herself. Each day was a delicate balancing act, keeping the roof from collapsing, the livestock alive, the children fed. Pride had long since faded into necessity. Now, desperation dictated her decisions, and hope seemed like a distant, unreachable horizon, much like the one glowing in fiery colors before her eyes. And then she saw him. Dust kicked up by the hooves of a horse caught her attention first. Mara squinted against the setting sun, trying to make out the figure riding toward the farm. The rancher, Cole, a man who had passed by countless times, each ride leaving him as much a mystery as the wind itself. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and moved with a quiet confidence that made his presence feel larger than life. His horse, a muscular chestnut, carried him effortlessly across the uneven terrain, every stride precise, controlled. Mara had seen him from afar more than once, always alone, always silent, yet somehow commanding attention without a word. Cole slowed as he approached the fence, raising his head in the familiar nod that Mara had come to recognize. "Evening," he said, his voice low, smooth, and carrying the weight of someone accustomed to authority, yet not unkind. Mara's heart skipped a beat. There was something in the way he looked at her, a softness that only appeared when he thought no one was watching. She felt an ache in her chest, the kind that came from months of longing for help, for comfort, for even a single thread of normalcy. The words tumbled out before she could stop them, whispered almost against her will. "Please, be my husband, just for tonight." Cole's brows lifted in surprise, his expression caught between disbelief and curiosity. Mara's voice faltered for a moment as she looked down at her children, who were now staring at the stranger with wide, curious eyes. She didn't ask for love, or for forever. She didn't want him to replace the man who had abandoned them. She only wanted one night where her children could feel safe, where they could see a father's presence, even if it was a borrowed one, and where she could feel the fragile warmth of human connection once again. Cole stayed silent for a long moment, the weight of her plea sinking in. He noticed the deep shadows under her eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly, the way her shoulders carried years of hardship as if they were physical burdens pressing her down. And yet, there was a fire in her gaze, a stubborn resilience that refused to let despair claim her entirely. She was not weak, she was desperate, yes, but there was courage in her vulnerability, a raw honesty that reached Cole in a way words alone could not. Mara's children had begun to fidget, unsure of the stranger, but still holding a quiet hope in their hearts that this man might be different. Cole crouched slightly to meet their eyes, giving a small, careful smile that did not mock, did not patronize, but simply acknowledged their presence. Mara's breath hitched as she watched, realizing that her children, even for a moment, were seeing someone who could fill the void left by abandonment. She took a step closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just tonight, I just want to feel safe. All of us, together." There was nothing manipulative in her tone, no hint of deceit, only raw, aching honesty. Her chest heaved as she tried to keep her composure, her fingers twisting the hem of her faded dress. Every heartbeat seemed loud in the quiet evening air, every inhalation a reminder of how fragile hope could be. Cole straightened slowly, running a hand through his dark hair, his gaze never leaving hers. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken questions, yet brimming with an unspoken possibility. Mara could feel the tension in her own body, the mingling of fear, hope, and longing that made her feel alive and exposed all at once. She knew she was asking for something extraordinary, almost unthinkable, and yet, desperation had a way of rewriting the rules of propriety. Finally, he spoke, his voice a calm anchor in the chaos of her emotions. "I'll stay, tonight." Mara blinked, unsure if she had heard him correctly. And then, a quiet sense of relief settled over her, a fragile smile tugging at her lips. The sun dipped lower, shadows stretching across the farm, and for the first time in months, Mara allowed herself to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, things could feel a little lighter, a little safer, for even one night. Cole didn't speak immediately after agreeing to stay. Instead, he surveyed the small farmhouse, taking in the cracked wooden boards, the modest furniture, and the children's patched clothing. There was nothing flashy here, nothing extravagant, just the rawness of life lived on the edge of survival. Yet in that rawness, he saw resilience, a stubborn spark of life refusing to be extinguished. Mara noticed the way his eyes softened when he glanced at her children, the careful way he observed their movements, their laughter, their shy glances. In that silent observation, she felt a strange mixture of relief and apprehension. Relief that someone else finally cared, apprehension at how quickly this man had entered the delicate balance of their lives. Inside, Mara led Cole into the modest kitchen. The smell of cooked beans, cornbread, and the faint tang of fresh milk lingered in the air. He nodded in appreciation, not of the food itself, but of the care and effort behind it. Mara's children hovered near the table, curiosity warring with their natural shyness. Cole knelt to their level, extending his hand gently. "I'm Cole," he said simply, "and I'm going to be here tonight with you." The children exchanged quick glances, their initial hesitation giving way to cautious hope. They took his hand one by one, testing the unfamiliar presence that felt safe, steady, and strong. Mara watched her son's small fingers curl around Cole's, her daughter's nervous smile beginning to bloom, and a lump rose in her throat. For the first time in months, she felt the heavy weight of worry ease just a fraction. Dinner was quiet at first. The clinking of plates and silverware filled the empty spaces between them, punctuated by the occasional murmur or question. Cole asked about schoolwork, chores, and their father, listening intently as Mara explained what little she could. There was no judgment in his voice, only curiosity and a hint of admiration for the way she managed everything single-handedly. Mara felt her chest tighten with an unexpected warmth. She had been seen, truly seen, not as a woman struggling to survive, but as someone extraordinary in her quiet courage. As the meal progressed, the conversation became lighter. Cole shared small stories about life on the ranch, about horses, storms, and long, lonely rides across the plains. The children laughed at his animated expressions, at the way he pretended to talk to a stubborn mule as if it had a mind of its own. Mara allowed herself to smile too, a genuine, unguarded smile that felt almost foreign on her face. For one night, the shadows of the past were pushed aside, replaced by something rare and fleeting, a sense of family, of normalcy, of protection. After dinner, Mara cleared the plates while Cole helped the children with their chores, fetching firewood and checking the animals. She watched him from the doorway, struck by the gentle authority he exuded. He didn't command, he guided. He didn't scold, he encouraged. And through it all, the children responded to him instinctively, as if recognizing a natural protector. Mara felt a strange flutter in her chest, gratitude, admiration, and something more complicated she couldn't name. But she pushed it aside, reminding herself this was just one night, a borrowed comfort, a temporary shield against the harshness of their reality. When night fell, the farmhouse glowed with the warmth of the fireplace. Shadows danced along the walls, and the air was thick with the scent of burning wood and the faint tang of herbs Mara had dried for months. She found herself sitting beside Cole, their shoulders brushing ever so slightly. The firelight caught the lines of his face, the ruggedness softened by the gentle expression in his eyes. He looked at her, not with expectation, not with desire, but with understanding, a silent acknowledgement of her courage, her struggle, and her desperate plea for help. "Thank you," Mara whispered, her voice barely audible over the crackle of the flames. "For staying. For everything tonight." Cole shook his head gently, a small smile tugging at his lips. "It's not just for you," he said. "Your kids, they deserve this. You deserve this." His words were simple, yet they carried a weight Mara had not anticipated. She realized, with a mix of awe and relief, that this night had already changed her. Not because of love, not because of promises, but because someone had chosen to step into her world and stand beside her, even for just a few hours. As the night deepened, Mara felt the rare, fragile comfort of connection. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, or how long this borrowed peace would last. But for now, in the flickering firelight, with the children asleep under blankets they had once feared would never be enough, she allowed herself to breathe, to believe, even for a moment, that kindness could exist in a world so often cruel. Dawn crept over the plains like a slow, golden tide, spilling soft light across the farmhouse and warming the dusty earth. Mara woke to the quiet sound of movement, her children whispering and shuffling about, Cole already awake and tending to them as though he had been part of their lives forever. The sight struck her with a strange, bittersweet intensity. This rugged stranger, who had arrived out of nowhere, had seamlessly stepped into the role of protector and confidant, bringing with him a sense of security she hadn't felt in months. Cole moved with quiet efficiency, helping her son lace his boots, ensuring her daughter's hair was neatly braided, and slipping small pieces of bread into their hands for breakfast. There was no show of heroism, no theatrical gestures, just the steady, unassuming care of someone who understood that small actions often mattered more than grand declarations. Mara felt her chest tighten with gratitude and longing. It was one thing to survive, another entirely to be seen and supported in moments so ordinary and yet so profound. She approached him cautiously, hesitant to disturb the ease of the scene. "They'll be late for school if we don't hurry," she murmured, though her words carried more than just a practical concern. They carried the weight of recognition, of understanding, of unspoken thanks. Cole looked up at her, his dark eyes catching the morning light, and gave her a small, warm smile. "Don't worry, they'll be fine. We've got this." Watching him with her children, Mara realized how extraordinary this one night had been. He hadn't asked for anything in return, hadn't demanded love or gratitude. He simply chose to step into their lives when they needed him most. It was a gift far beyond what she could have imagined, and yet, she knew she couldn't hold on to it forever. Life had its harsh rules, and this borrowed comfort was fragile, meant to last only as long as it could without breaking. When the time came for him to leave, Mara's heart clenched with a quiet sorrow she hadn't expected. Her children waved energetically, their faces bright and full of hope, oblivious to the complex emotions playing across the adults' faces. Cole mounted his horse, his presence commanding even in stillness, and looked back at them with a gaze that was both gentle and unwavering. "Take care of each other," he said softly, his voice carrying across the morning air. "You're stronger than you know." Mara stepped closer, gripping the fence post, feeling the rough wood under her fingers as a tangible anchor against the flood of emotion. "Thank you," she whispered again, her voice thick with tears she refused to shed fully. "For everything, for tonight." Cole nodded once, a silent acknowledgement, then nudged his horse forward. Dust rose behind him, curling in the golden morning light, and Mara's children cheered, unaware of the weight of goodbye. Mara watched him ride away, each stride carrying him further from their lives, yet leaving an indelible mark on their hearts. For the first time in months, she allowed herself a tentative smile, a recognition that kindness and hope could arrive in unexpected forms, sometimes on a dusty horse with a quiet man's steady gaze. The farmhouse felt different after he left. The air was lighter, the silence no longer oppressive. Mara held her children close, feeling their warmth and hearing their soft chatter as they recalled the small moments of the night before, the way Cole had smiled, the gentle stories he told, the protection he had offered without a single demand. That memory settled over her like sunlight through a cracked window, a reminder that even in a life so weighed down by hardship, moments of grace could exist. Mara moved about the kitchen, preparing breakfast with a renewed energy, her mind replaying the night and the brief, extraordinary gift it had brought. She realized that while Cole's presence was temporary, the impact he had made was permanent. Her children had seen security, comfort, and care in someone outside their family, a spark that would carry them through the days ahead. Mara herself felt a strange shift within her. Hope was no longer just a dream, it was tangible, residing in the memory of a stranger's kindness, a night that had reminded her that human connection could still surprise and sustain. Outside, the plains stretched endlessly, promising hard work, endless chores, and the trials of a life lived on the edge of survival. Yet Mara felt fortified, armed not just with courage, but with the knowledge that she could endure more than she had ever imagined. One night had brought a miracle of sorts, not romance, not a permanent savior, but a reminder that hope could ride in from the horizon, silent, strong, and enduring. As Mara watched the sun climb higher, she whispered a quiet promise to herself and her children. No matter the challenges, no matter the isolation, they would survive. They would endure, and perhaps, in the quiet moments between hardship and routine, they might even find fleeting glimpses of magic, moments like the night the rancher rode by, and everything, even for just one night, felt right.